Welcome back. Today we have a very favorite topic of mine, and that is Ananda. And we want to know what is Ananda because we hear, people say the reality is Satchit Ananda, which is eternal existence, consciousness, or the knowing principle of reality, and bliss. What is bliss? So hopefully we can cover that a bit, and I'm going to be using some quotation from Swami Nikhilananda, who wrote a lovely introduction on Hindu ethics in his volume 2 of the Upanishads. And I really enjoyed that my experiences were confirmed by his writing, and also that any doubts that I have had were cleared as to what the Ananda is referring to. Because one of the main things people sometimes say is that the Ananda of Satchit Ananda it's just a peace. It's an empty peace, and you just feel content and you're okay, and that's Ananda. And I disagree, and I would like to show that Swami Nikhilananda disagrees. And I like to use actual initiated swamis because I am not initiated into Vedanta. I'm initiated into Kriya Yoga. So I like to not just speak from experience, but to have this to it as well, so that anyone can feel more confident in what I'm saying. So I'll read the quotation here. According to non-dualistic Vedanta, the goal of human life is liberation from ignorance, resulting not only in the destruction of all misery, but in the attainment of positive bliss, not empty peace. The self is knowledge, reality, and bliss. The empirical happiness derived from the contact of the senses is distinguished from the real or transcendental bliss, which is the very stuff of the self. This bliss always exists in the self, but is covered by ignorance. Therefore, the real bliss is not to be created, but simply to be discovered. So, what does that mean for us and for our practice, and what we are moving towards in our practice? It means that, I like the distinction here, liberation is not just the destruction of misery. So it's not that you're just freed from suffering and now you're just kind of hanging out. There is an actual bliss that's powerful and potent that gets revealed as you clean yourself up and progress in your practice, and you get to begin touching on this bliss that is the very stuff of the self. So how do we get there? I want to keep this video a bit shorter, a bit simpler, but the way to get to bliss, and it's not generated, as he says. The real bliss is not to be created, but to be discovered. So you're not trying to generate bliss with your practices. You're trying to remove something that is hiding bliss. And what hides bliss? Well, Swami says, ignorance. So, what is ignorance? Ignorance can show up in a lot of different ways in people's minds, but the ignorance that we are referring to here is the ignorance caused by the veil of identity, which is It's to say there's a function within our minds which takes existence and the reflection thereof and condenses it into me, into an I. An I that is here, and then the world is out there. So that process is then furthered, and the I is placed onto the mind, thoughts, feelings, and we say, I am angry, I am hungry, I am thirsty, or it gets placed onto the body, and we say, I am running, I am walking, I'm talking. When looking more clearly, we see that these are just kind of things that are happening as an expression of the motive, the motivation, and the what's the word I'm looking for? Shoot. You know what I'm talking about? Where something's moving and it keeps moving. Can't think of the word, strangely. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. Momentum. That is the word, momentum. It's the momentum of our karmas and our reactions and of the existence as a whole. And these just happen naturally, just as a result of previous actions. So, like a ball rolling down a hill, it hits another ball, that one keeps rolling. So, a thought we had a second ago perpetuates an emotion that we feel in the next moment, and that emotion perpetuates an action. We don't necessarily need to say, I am thinking, I am feeling, and I am acting in order for that process to continue. So essentially, the process of revealing that bliss would be to prevent that function from prevailing. However, it's not that simple. So we can't just stop identifying. It's really not easy. It's not, you can't just, can't happen like that. Very rarely, maybe, but for most people, that habit of the mind is a result of stress, trauma, clinging, and clinging also has some negative connotations in the spiritual world. We're like, oh, I'm clinging to my mom. I need to stop doing that. I'm a bad person for clinging. Like, no, you're not a bad person. You're just a person. And that clinging is just because you're scared, right? We're all scared of something. And so we cling desperately to this because we're afraid of letting go, because letting go means we no longer have agency. And most of our trauma involves a lack of agency. Most of our trauma occurs when we are children, when we don't have the intellectual or physical capacity for agency. And when someone takes advantage of that, then we end up with these attachment disorders and this endless clinging to memories, to people, to ideas, to our own bodies, to our minds. And so the process of removing self-placement and removing that function of the mind is a process of healing. And, cleaning up all of our inflammation, our hidden inflammation that is trapped in our subconscious and that we aren't really aware of. So it just keeps going and going and going, and we don't know it because we don't know it. So before you try to remove your ego, dig into yourself and see what you're clinging on to and why. And when you find out why, then you can process that event as it is with the knowledge that you are safe. Maybe you're in a therapist's office. You're safe. You're with someone you can trust who isn't going to take advantage of your lack of agency, who isn't going to make fun of you for being vulnerable, and who isn't going to shut you down for expressing yourself and feeling your pain in front of them. And that's why I say you don't necessarily need to put off spiritual practice until you've done therapy. Just do gentler practices. And I will link below some stuff from my guru that is very helpful for beginners, like just heart rate variability breathing to consciously activate your parasympathetic nervous system and begin to relax. And this may be a less Western practice, but when you have fear and pain and they show up in your stomach and in your heart, to chant Om. And, just whenever those feelings arise, chant Om into that feeling. And hopefully I can link something down below to explain more about this Om chanting from Forrest Knutson. But just doing these simple practices along with digging into your psyche will help to unravel all of these knots, and you'll start just naturally becoming clear. And you're like, wow, meditation is so easy now. What changed? What happened? It's because you're no longer clinging behind the scenes, and you no longer have clouds so much blocking up your perception of what you really are, and what I know that I am and what you are, which is bliss, which is straight joy and happiness and ecstasy. Ecstasy that makes you want to scream and shout. and you can't, it's very difficult to function sometimes, and that's why we learn to control that experience of bliss, or have a way of, this is for deeper people, but to have a way of managing it so that we can interact with others and not be incomprehensibly blissed out uncontrollably, because the point of yoga is to have control, to have control consciously, to know what you're doing, and to not necessarily fall to the whims of unconscious action and behavior and circumstance. So, yeah, that's bliss. Bliss is joy, and it's when you, at a certain point, there's just kind of a baseline level of just happiness. You're not merely content. You're not merely free of negative things. You are actually positive. You feel good, and you feel there is meaning in life again. Because this empty peace, this voidness, it leads people down a path of nihilism and feeling like, what's the point? What the hell am I here for? So, I definitely think it's something to consider in your practice, to know that part of what is going to help you get to blissful experiences and to experience the bliss that is naturally a part of who you are, that naturally is who you are, we need to clear up our subconscious. We need to clear up our trauma responses, because those trauma responses themselves are clinging. And this clinging is an expansion. It's an expansion, a furthering of the fundamental ignorance, the fundamental veil of ignorance, which is self-placement, which is, rather than letting everything exist, we need to identify with something to feel that we exist in a certain way that aligns with our feelings and our experiences. And those feelings and experiences are the result of our past and our conditioning. And for a lot of people on the path, there's trauma as a result, that is behind that conditioning. So, yes, we need to get into that. We need to get into the nitty-gritty. We need to go down before we go up. It's like, you have this old car, you've had it for 30, 40 years, and you've never taken it to the shop, and you want to go do the NASCAR 500 or something. And it's just not going to work until you get into the engine, and you clean up all the grease and the dirt and the nit and the grit. So that's what we got to do with our brain and with our minds. And I would say it is necessary to heal before we can effectively and safely remove the ahamkara, the ego. Before we can remove that, we need to heal. We need to let go and process everything that's making us cling. And I want to say that the ahamkara and the ego, it's not your personality itself. That's the thing people miss. People think it's this personality, this feeling of a person being there as the ego. And in Vedanta, that is not what the ego is. The ego is that which says, I am this personality. Do you see the difference? We can be healthy individuals, emotionally mature, and be completely free of ego. We can completely understand who ourself is in relation to the world without feeling I am this in relation to the world. Do you understand the difference? So we're not destroying ourselves. Do you understand? We are letting it be, letting it unravel, letting it heal, and letting it grow, so that we can get to a point where our consciousness is comfortable enough to let go of the clinging of I am this, and the clinging of I am, and it just becomes this. It is what it is, and it becomes that, the capital T. Sat Chit Ananda. And I hope you liked that video, and I hope it was informative. I hope you learned something. I hope you are motivated to continue your practice, and I hope that you one day experience, recognize, discover, realize yourself and what you are, which is Ananda, which is bliss. Okay, bye.